Thanks again for being here, and happy Mother's Day to everybody, especially the mothers. Um, yeah, what a gift mothers have given us. There's nobody on nobody here who wasn't brought in by what was not brought in by a mother. Um, and so, including all the Buddhas throughout our history, um, every Buddha, every enlightened being that has ever lived was created by a mother. um, and that has not always been revered or really celebrated. Particularly celebrated in action, like manifested in reality, because women were considered secondary to men. And even in Buddha's day, it was like, oh, well, if she were a man, she could be enlightened. And they had to fight to be included. And Buddha had to, I don't know, I'm not an expert in the history, but there's some sense that he was encouraged to include women. um, and a lot of that misogynistic tendency is still alive today. There's Buddhist traditions where women aren't allowed to be primary practitioners or priests. We don't need, but it would be refreshing to have a female Dalai Lama, a Dalai Mama. And even in our lineage in Zen today, there are issues with this. Women, I attended a couple of the sessions in our White Plum Asanga, our teacher group. So all the teachers in the White Plum Sangha have meetings once a year. And so this one was online. Choa gave a presentation for part of it about diversity. And during part of one of the talks that I listened to, they mentioned that women in the White Plum Sangha, women teachers in the White Plum Sangha still feel underrepresented and undersupported. And so, yeah, it's a historical, and so in this sense, it's kind of universal to our species and our planet, that women have not had the support and the respect and the opportunities that they deserve and that they are. So, right, acknowledging that the mothers have raised all the Buddhas. Fathers too, but this isn't about them. Fathers may have come and gone, but we know the mothers. We know who the mothers are, and we know the mothers have cared for the kids and raised them. And so they've created all of our Buddhas. So we have mothers to thank for all Buddhahood. So thank you to all the mothers of all the Buddhas and all the mothers of the non-Buddhas. Um, I interviewed a woman teacher from our White Plum lineage several months ago for a podcast. And I haven't put it on the podcast yet, but I'm going to do that today. Partially because I'm talking about it, and it was inspired by her. I can't pronounce her last name, so I won't say it right now. But I'll share something maybe later by email to introduce the podcast. Her name's Linda. She lives in Germany. She's American, but she's lived in Germany for much of her life. And she really reinforced in the podcast the honoring of women and women ancestors as an intentional practice and as a prescription for helping sanghas to develop and become stronger through celebrating the women and acknowledging the the teachers throughout our history. And they have a group that meets every week or so or every month to talk about this particular book that celebrates that, and it's called The Hidden Lamp. And so for anybody who has not heard of it or read it, I encourage you to check it out and possibly buy it if you have $17.89. And so she really raved about it, and was very excited about how it's helping her Sangha to honor this and talk about this more, the women ancestors and wisdom. And so Sazin wrote one of the chapters of the book. This was about 15 years ago or so that they created this. And I had forgotten until she brought it up. I was like, oh yeah, Sazin Roshi wrote a chapter in that. And I remember when she was writing it. And so I wanted to talk about Sazin's writing in this book to honor women ancestors. And Sazin's, I couldn't find the category of like motherhood. I couldn't look up motherhood and find the koan that best reflected motherhood in the book. And so I just went with what we have. I went with what Sazin wrote. And it's not about motherhood. It's about sexuality and lust. And it's a story of a prostitute who is given credit for awakening and for being a Buddha and enlightening monks and Buddhas. Her name is Vasumitra. And the name of the chapter 32, is Vasumitra Teaches Freedom from Passion. In the flower ornament scripture, a nun encouraged the pilgrim Sudana to meet the courtesan Vasumitra. When he arrived in Vasumitra city, people said, "Why would you want to meet her? You should not be under the power of such a woman. You should not enter the realm of temptation." Others, though, knowing of her virtues and wisdom, directed him to her house. Right? So I don't know if it's reminiscent of like the Jesus and the Mary Magdalene story. But there's a sense of that she's considered a prostitute, but she's also has great wisdom and the power to awaken and enlighten men, I think primarily through passion, which also includes lust, maybe love. Um, and so Sudana went up to her respectfully and asked for her teaching on how to practice as a bodhisattva. She said, I have attained an enlightening liberation called ultimate dispassionate. And I appear in the form of a female of splendor and perfection. Right? She was considered very beautiful and in a sensual way. I appear, people come to me with minds full of passion, and I teach them freedom from passion. Some attain freedom from passion as soon as they see me. Some merely by talking with me, some by holding my hand, some by staying with me, some by gazing at me, some by embracing me, some by kissing me. They enter various states of concentration. They enter various concentration states, including light of freedom from bondage and womb, receiving all beings without rejection. And all experience this liberation. She then directed Sudana onward on his journey. And so there's this sense of, right, the prostitute who just unconditionally accepts all who come to her and help them from wherever they're at with this unconditional love. And and that is not especially encouraged much these days. When's the last time a Zen teacher told you to go see a prostitute to help work through your stuck places? Or acknowledge the wisdom and virtue and value of a prostitute because of their enlightenment. Sex work has been relegated and marginalized to essentially an abusive system without the respect that it deserves. And so there is this duality between our upstanding Zen practice of virtue and this underbelly of lust and passion and sex work that is different than that. And so that's one duality in our culture that I think we would do better to dissolve or bridge. I can relate to this. I can relate to this story. When I was a priest here at Sweetwater, it was about a year and a half after we moved down here. I've always been a little crazy and marginal and lustful and addicted and kind of living that lifestyle. And I'm open to it. I've always been kind of open to the, a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle. And I fell in love with a prostitute. I didn't know she was a prostitute at the time because we started dating. But we really did. We fell in love. And then about maybe a few months, couple months into it, I was like, wait a minute. I mean, right, the signs are there. It's not too hard to see the signs. And so within a couple of months, I was like, are you a prostitute? She was like, yep, I am. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Just my type. Uh, and we were together for a few years. And it was just as wild and crazy as anybody might have predicted it was. But I honestly credit her to my greatest awakening, which was my awakening I had with her was that there is systematic, organized abuse under the surface of our society that nobody's addressing, and most people don't know about it, and most people don't want to know about it. But I see it now. She was a part of a lifelong victimization in an organized way. And it broke my heart, completely broke my heart wide open. And I was just like, this is, because we were in love and I loved her, and I still do. We still talk. I'm still in touch with her. And like, it became my mission to, like, I want the world to know that this kind of systematic abuse happens, and I want to stop it. I want to make a difference. The biggest difference I can would be to start with the sex abuse industry. If I could start anywhere in the world, you say, okay, the planet is messed up, where should we start fixing it? I go straight to who are the young women and men being sexually abused for the benefit of everybody who's floating on top of that. It's like the lowest of the low. Everybody's built on top of that, and we benefit from it, right? Our casual sex advertising, our casual pornography industry, all the things that look sexy and look attractive are built on top of a horrific 1% that is being severely abused and manipulated and controlled all of their lives. If we could not save, but if one of those victims could really be honored in society and come up and be respected for their wisdom and the difficult wisdom they've gained through being abused, the whole world would benefit. If just one, and it happens, it happens occasionally. There's someone who comes up and breaks out of it and helps teach the world, hey, this is going on. These things do happen. And then it gets covered up, right? We're never going to see the Epstein files. It's just not going to happen. They're going to use it as talking points and say, oh, don't worry, we're going to put it out there. We're going to get the bad guys. Well, guess what? The bad guys are the ones who are editing all the information right now. We're never going to see the truth of that. If we do, it'll be so filtered and redacted that it's going to be pointless, be impotent. It's just one example, right? That's the whole world's suffering is built on this one incident of sexual abuse and control. Anyway, in this story, Vasumitra challenges the assumption that physical passion is separate from enlightenment. Right? So, as Buddhas, we practice raising our vibration and having a higher mind and having discipline of mind, discipline from passion. If we're stuck with passion, we practice being it in order to release it, to let it go. And I struggle with passion every week, every day, as a stuck place. And I work on this. But am I working on it to let go of it to be enlightened? Or am I working on it because it is enlightenment? You know, it's easy to feel guilty about being overly passionate or overly lustful. But can we practice accepting that as enlightenment? That my lust and my passion is awakened as it is. And it's difficult. It's really, anyway, there's a lot here, I think, to work with and practice with. I can't cover really effectively. So I'll just try to I'll try to keep, I'll read more of what I've highlighted. One way to realize the fact is to meditate in the midst of craving. And this is Seizen's teaching about this. One way to realize that fact, what fact? Being free from passion means waking up to the fact that I am not separate from all that is. That feeling is joyous and not dependent on other people. There is no yearning for another because there is no other. That's the fact. That we are all one, and that I don't need to feel lonely because I am everyone and everything, and we're all together, even when I look alone. To feel that feeling, to feel that connectedness is the awakening. No yearning for another, because we are all others. One way to realize the fact is to meditate in the midst of craving, not rejecting or rising above it, and especially not acting out. This transformational practice is to focus on the yearning while letting go of the object of desire. So being the yearning, being the lust, being the passion, allowing that to happen, not pushing it away, is the key. Seizen Roshi says, I found myself enraged at a teacher who was found to be the perpetrator of sexual misconduct in a sangha. We've had a variety of sexual abuse perpetrations in our sangha, in which a teacher has had sex with a student or multiple students, and manipulating their power position to take advantage of someone who's vulnerable. Seizen says, I found myself enraged, and the anger was so big that I realized something had been triggered in me. I began to get in touch with my own sexual predator. I became aware of sexual desire that was all-encompassing and extremely painful. Rather than satisfying my desire through sex or fantasy, I let go of the object and embraced the yearning. I found my sexual desire to be a gateway to freedom by being one with it. When Sudana embraces Vasumitra, he doesn't embrace a woman separate from himself. He embraces his own passion. Being one with lust, he realizes that is empty, and he becomes free. This freedom is also available to us. So, a very powerful teaching about one of the most powerful forces that we confront and we work with and practice. And ultimately, it's a celebration of women and the power of enlightenment that they have. Whether an upstanding moral figure or a prostitute who is seductive. And ultimately, it's the power of being what we are, accepting ourselves for who we are, and being what we are, right? So if we being our struggles, realizing awakening can happen anywhere, anytime. Every angle and every difficulty is a chance for awakening. And we are awakened. We are awakened right here and now. Always. Occasionally our concentration and our emotions put us in a place to accept that. But it's always available. It's never not true. So if I'm feeling angry or lustful or insecure or judgmental, that can be a distraction from the fact, right? So we practice sort of creating an overlap more often so that throughout my day, there's more times throughout my day where I overlap and I go, oh, aha, this is awakened right here now. In my misery, in my joy, in my grasping, in my letting go. And that's really why we do Zazen, is to develop our concentration and practice being in this space more where we can experience that overlap between fact and our experience and our ideas. So thank you to all the prostitutes. Happy Mother's Day to all the prostitutes, including ones who could not have children because of severe abuse. And thank you to all the mothers of all the Buddhas and the mothers of all the prostitutes. And all the prostitutes that are mothers. May we take this seriously. That if we can collectively embrace and support one sex worker with a story of abuse, with acceptance and oneness, only then will we have a true chance at awakening our world.